God, we're so grateful to you for today, all that you've allowed us to accomplish to this hour. We thank you for this time that you are giving us to use our wisdom to do your will for the people of Georgia. Thank you for this committee. Thank you for the leadership. And thank you for that which will take place now in these next few moments for the people of Georgia. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to thank the members of the subcommittee and who are here today in the audience. Let's move through this expeditiously because we do have full committee after this. And let's everybody keep that in mind when we're asking our questions and testifying, members of the audience. Today we are going to hear House Bill 1131. So Representative Townsend, if you'd like to go up to the podium. And the mic's going to be on, and you can start whenever you want to.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to zip through this. I heard brevity is going to be the key today if I want a favorable outcome, so you will have brevity, I promise. This is HB 1131 LC 49 1840S. And basically, this is a suicide awareness and training program and also violence prevention training program based on some of the things that's happened in the schools the past few years. We feel this is going to be a good bill for Georgia and for our kids. That's what's most important for our kids and teachers. Basically, we'll start off with just a few background facts. And as you know, according to CDC, 29% of high school kids reported poor mental health. 10% of high school students attempted suicide in 2021. Mass violence related, 76% of the perpetrators of mass violence exhibited warning signs. What this bill does basically helps other students, helps teachers see those warning signs that you may see in school for whatever reason. And as you start getting through the bill, this was implemented in 2026, 2027. First part is teacher training. We've talked with DOE and also First District RESA, and also a few other groups as well. This some of the substitutions you've seen throughout the past 3 weeks is on that. Hopefully you can still hear me. I know I'm cutting in and out, if it sounds like. But the teacher training is mandatory already in the state, and they're starting to implement that now. DOE it is research based, so it is included in this bill, but it's going to be led by DOE, what they're doing now. Student training, it'll be 1 hour mandatory requirement per year, minimum of student training. It can be in person, it can be online, it could be remote as well. So there's different ways to do the student training. It has to be evidence-based. There are for-profit and non-profit vendors out there that will do this. And the school system, its local control, will have the choice to choose a non-profit vendor at no cost or a for-profit vendor at cost, but of course they can use this school safety grant that many schools have utilized the past few years as well. Next would be the resources provided to parents and students. This again would be through the vendor, the nonprofit vendor, or the for-profit vendor, research-based, of course. They'll also this data, these resources will be available on a website. A student hotline, a student or teacher, really community hotline will be set up by the state. This will be run through, a vendor, nonprofit or for-profit vendor, where you could either text or you could call in an anonymous report of someone that you've seen triggers or someone you're concerned about that's going through a mental health crisis. So if they saw me all of a sudden doing things out of the norm that didn't seem right, they can report it. They actually be calling to a live person 24/7. Also, a licensed practitioner would be on duty at all times, and the state would have the teams involved or the school contact of who to call at that school to let them know about this young person that could be in distress. The end of year report, the DOE be responsible for. you'll see the different dynamics in their descriptions of the details of it, what they'd be responsible for. Again, they can do this, or they can outsource it to a vendor, nonprofit or a profit vendor as well, to help collect this data for the website and everything else. So it is all public. The reporting is not public, as in who reports it. That is anonymous, but the information of different information regarding the calls would happen. You'd also have your 911 centers, again, apprised of this bill as well. Each one would know about it and go through initial training for this. And we talked about the website already. And really, that's the gist of the bill. The key here is going to be, this is based on the Sandy Hook's promise that everybody's heard about, to where we're trying to avoid what happened up there. I know how Ohio has already instituted it, and they've had it for 4 years now. Louisiana's jumped in, and we're looking at it and had positive feedback so far regarding this. I'll be glad. I've got more information if you really want to hear it. I know time's the factor. Just let me know if some of the things we've talked with DOE. I think that went well in some of the groups, and be glad to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, Representative Glaze, I see your light.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you,
Yes,
Chair
ma'am.
Lady. I am just going to speak to the bill as one of the signers. So this summer, we actually did a tour with local schools and colleges. One of the things that kept reoccurring was the fact that students are dealing with depression, and many of them are on meds, and yet they are still asking for assistance. And just 3 weeks ago in District 67, we had a high school senior who plays basketball, who would have been a scholarship athlete, take his life. On the surface, it looked like those clues weren't there. After the fact, there are some clues that were there. I think a bill like this would assist not just the student, but the students surrounding our kids who are dealing with mental health issues, our teachers, and our communities. Certainly the families. If we can save one life with this bill, I certainly would be excited about that. But I think we have the ability to impact so many lives and save them and help them get to a point where their mental health is stable again. I do know that our 988 system is set up to take in information and call-ins, but we do need this kind of legislation. And so thank you again, Representative Rick, for bringing this to us. I certainly stand with you, and I just hold the do pass if we're going to vote on this today, or is it coming out and going up to the full committee?
We will take a vote on this legislation today, but we've got a couple of other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Representative Adana.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Lady, and Rep. Townsend. Thank you very much for this bill.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, and I know I was reading, it's 1 hour of training, either in person or virtual. This will be a requirement for any student joining at any time of the school year, correct?
Correct. 6 through 12, yes.
6 through 12, okay.
Unless they've already had another public school within the state.
Okay. And how, would the local school track that, or?
They would. You know, when you intake them through the counselor's office or registrar's office, who comes from in-state or out-of-state or public school or homeschool.
Okay.
It'd be easy to track, but that's a good point.
All right. Thank you. Very, very good bill.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any other questions, but we do have someone to speak to the bill, and I'll call up Lauren Freilich.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and thank you to Representative Townsend for bringing this bill. I'm Lauren Freilich with Freilich Bozeman Public Affairs. We represent Sandy Hook Promise, and I also am a part of a moms group of concerned moms who are frankly worried about sending their kids to school and their safety. So we support this bill. We feel like providing evidence-based training for students to see signs if someone's at risk of harming themselves or others is one step in helping us prevent violence at school. So we are very appreciative of that. And we also, through Sandy Hook and their research, has learned that students want a place where they can go if they're concerned about somebody and help them get the help that they need, not to just call and necessarily report someone to law enforcement. But they do see things on social media and other places where a lot of times someone has said beforehand that they are planning on acting on something. And so we feel like this is a great tool to help give them an outlet to provide that input anonymously. So we support the bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. And Representative Glaze, as much as I love you, you are my friend. You are visiting us from the other subcommittee, so I'm going to need someone else to make a motion. What's your number? 17. Okay.
Wow, when I was 17. I like to move that we do pass HB 1131.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, HB 1131 as a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, shall this bill now pass? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay, you are on to full, and I assume that'll be in a minute? I don't know. We don't know if it'll be in it or not. We will wait on a ruling from the big chair. Let's see, where are we? Okay, 1276. We're gonna skip on our agenda to House Bill 1276. Representative Cox. You can go ahead when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is House Bill 1276, which is LC 491769.
Okay.
The bill to be known as the Georgia High School NIL Protection Act. So this is in regards to name, image, and likeness as it relates to high school sports in the state of Georgia. First, I think it's important to understand that currently NIL is not something that is, it's obviously a subject that's debated over in college athletics and onward. But in the state of Georgia, it's currently accepted for high school athletes to be able to have an NIL contract. So we want to make sure that we protect the student athletes as they are participating in said contracts. The number of these athletes, we believe, is an estimate of less than 50. I probably think it may be somewhere closer to 30, but we have someone here as well that can speak to that if we need to. Number one thing as it relates to name, image, and likeness, we must educate the parents and the athletes on NIL. So this bill will also help bring education. There's various organizations that can do that, but we want to make sure that the parents understand what is in their future as it relates to these contracts. Number two, if you go to page 5 of the bill, in lines 105 through 115, it explains the NIL contract as a whole. It can't be something that has the existing school or logo and promotes the potential of illegal recruiting or manipulation from local high schools, but it's literally based off of the student athlete's name, image, and likeness, which they truly own. In those line items, this contract will only be good until they finish school or that they have actually moved on from high school. So one of the thoughts is that we take the contract and make sure at the point of finishing athletics that contract is no longer void afterwards and they renegotiate a new contract at the next level. Why is that important? Because we have seen at the collegiate level going into the NFL that sometimes these contracts can be manipulated and carry over, and can be never ending. So it's very important for minors within the state that we're protecting those interests. Next, there's child actor laws that currently exist within the state. And in those laws, it's the probate court that actually oversees some of this, the protection for these minors. We'll be using the same platform that's already in existence for that. And there's the language of a conservatorship or conservator that we're using as well. Please understand that this would start with, hopefully the parents would be the ones that's the conservator. However, when we look at such instances and with Britney Spears and her family, we know that sometimes things can be abused within family, and if that's the case, we want to make sure, once again, that minor athlete is protected from any abuse that could happen. But let's go down the plan of start with the parents first. Next is it relates to the concept of the contract itself. I'm going to give an example. If a contract lands for, say, $1 million, the thought process was after taxable income, let's just hypothetically say that number's 40%, so you're left with a net of $600,000. We want the 50% of the monies after taxable income at least to go into some form of trust or other applicable investment vehicle that could exist. So in that case, at $600,000, 50% would put you at $300,000, and that money is protected for the student athlete once they're no longer a minor. So it would carry over. So you may have a 9th grade student that's one heck of an athlete, or they could be like the gymnast at LSU. You may have some unique situations. We just want to make sure that we're protecting those interests and the money does not disappear. So that's the overview of what this bill is about, and it's to protect these minors in high school athletics. I yield for any questions you may have.
Okay, I don't see any questions, but we do have someone to speak to the bill. Dr. Hines, if you'd like to come on up.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thanks to Representative Cox. We've been in contact quite a bit over the last year or so talking about this. First, I want to talk a little bit about NIL, and I know you're pushed for time, and I'll be as brief as I can. But everyone enjoys the right to their own publicity, which is name, image, and likeness, okay? And just because a student happens to play sports and is not able to monetize their own personal name and likeness, that's really discriminatory against them. They're able to do that. Everybody else in the school can do that. And we studied that for a long time before we brought a rule. We have a rule in the Georgia High School Association now that governs NIL. We wanted to get the guardrails up where we don't have what we have in the NCAA. And the NCAA, you have to think that money, along with the transfer portal, people change schools to go and they get all this money. This is not that way. Our rule is attached to bylaws that we currently have, such as undue influence, recruiting, and the amateur rule is still in place, which means that you cannot be paid for performance. Okay, all that being said, moving forward fast, there are 33 kids in the state of Georgia that have some type of NIL activity. The majority of those are people like there's a Mama's Kitchen in Barnesville that they got a male and a female athlete from their school, and if they do 4 social media posts, they get a free meal, that kind of thing. There are baseball players that get 2 pair of gloves and 2 sleeves for wearing this equipment. There's not it's not like it is. It's not like somebody's getting $4 million and a Lamborghini, which I'm glad our quarterback did get one of those. However, go Dogs. But but right now, what I think it would be pertinent for us to just slow down a little bit and let's gather some data and see what it is that we're doing. You know, if we need to move forward, I'm happy to work, you know, obviously, however it is that we need to do this. I think once we enact a law, I think it's much easier for us to deal with a policy that we feel really good about, and the guidance is, and I will say that Representative Cox, if you understand our policy and you read through the bill, what he has done is basically followed what it is, because, well, we've been talking about it all the way, and that's what it is. I do have concerns about forcing, setting up trust funds right now. Do we really need to be doing that? You know, the Commissioner of Labor, involved in those sorts of things. I'm not saying that we don't. I'm saying let's just take a step back and let's figure out this thing and how things need to go before moving forward. Because if we've got a problem, I promise you I'm the first one that wants to solve that problem. But we don't have that now. Let's get some data before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is your question for Dr. Hines, Representative? Okay, Representative Cox. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Cox, for the bill. I'm concerned about the guardrail. I heard about guardrails. Is the potential there for exploitation by agents or those persons? Is there any guardrails or oversight that for those persons that would be approaching these athletes? And the other piece of it, I heard, and I didn't understand this. You says cannot be performance-based, but those 30 athletes, there's something about those 30 athletes that we mentioned that we think that they will be part of this process. But it's got to be based on something. Is it just their ranking, or where do we get those 30 athletes from that we mentioned? And what is it about them that NIL would probably, they would be attracted to NIL? But then if there's a parent that's not educated enough to understand finances, isn't that a potential for exploitation in this process?
That's exactly why we want this bill.
Okay.
So as it relates to agents, they have to be a licensed agent within the state. So we have that particular piece to make sure that it's someone that isn't going to abuse the minor with certain types of contracts and manipulation. And the parents, remember, the first thing was educate about NIL. So to have parents understand what we're dealing with as it relates to these said contracts, I think it's very important that at that point they then become comfortable with being the conservator of the said trust. At the same time, they have an agent and a contract that they're working with, and I think that should protect them from that aspect. As it relates to, obviously, athletes they're ranked, but there are some athletes that are superior that still are not getting the name, image, and likeness contracts that others are. And you can look at just through social media and some of the other methods that currently exist, there's popularity in how people, their name, image, and their likeness. So as it does involve the athletics, and it clearly does at the next level, we want to make sure that we're protecting the schools, the associations, the abuse that can come from the illegal recruiting, which becomes their problem, but just making sure that it's specific to their name, image, and likeness. Is that okay?
Okay, are there any more questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. What's your number?
Madam Chair, move a motion
And what is that motion?
to duly pass HB 1276.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, was that was that the form of a question, Representative Carter? Okay. Chairman, are you okay?
Could have if at the appropriate time, and I'd like to talk with the author of the bill, in light of what I've heard just a short time I've been in here, would we be better off to table and discuss this more? We are short on time, as you could imagine, with crossover coming up, but would it be beneficial to slow down, or have you done enough homework to carry it on in front of the bigger group?
Well, the quantity of information that we've gathered, I feel comfortable with that information. At the same time, with the new guidelines which GHSA is currently using, it's really, we could view that as a beta test if you want to view it that way. We could gather information, and I'm not saying that I disagree or necessarily agree with Dr. Hines, but I would be completely open, because it would be prudent for the athletes if we at the least do a study committee and make sure that this is correct. I'm obviously comfortable. I'm here wanting it to pass, so I leave that at y'all's discretion, but that's my thought.
The question?
Yeah.
Chairwoman, thank you very much. Representative, let's, since we do have a little bit of time, why don't I make a motion to table this until a further date, with the idea that we might come back to it at a meeting later this week, and we could take action if we wanted to. So let me present that as a motion to table it this time.
Okay, so we have a motion to table. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of tabling this, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
So, okay, so if we table this, it comes back to the subcommittee versus moving it to the full committee. Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, so that motion passes. It is tabled. We'll look at it and bring it back to sub.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, this next one is a hearing only. It's an interesting idea that we're going to begin a conversation on. This is House Bill 1198. And Representative Bazemore has had an unfortunate accident today. And so Representative Evans is going to present her bill, and then we have a couple of people to speak to the bill. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Ballard. Yes, so I'm pleased to support my colleague, Representative Bazemore, in presenting this bill, LC 491778S. So does everyone have the substitute for this bill? Yes, and so let's just walk through the bill together. This is proposing a pilot for an immersive writing program. So if we look on page 2, this is an immersive writing immersive writing program from elementary schools. And in this pilot program, they'd provide funding for all public schools in grades 2 through 5 to participate in programs that provide for immersive writing experiences that are aligned with the writing standards of the State Board of Education, and that could be put into current curricula. And one thing that I really love about this is, we've all been learning more how, the importance of literacy, and the intersection of reading and writing is critical to developing our literacy. And I remember talking with you, Representative Ballard, and we were talking about high school students and that might, unfortunately, might still not be able to read. And that was one way you were saying you can tell if they're good readers by asking them to, to write something. So this, catches our children early and gets them excited in a creative, immersive writing experience. Representative Bazemore talked about, I think it was her granddaughter that wrote a book, and, she had that up on the board today. And so she just wants to bring this opportunity to other Georgians. So anyhow, of course, and then this Act would study the impacts of the pilot writing program. Subject to funds of the General Assembly, there would be funding up to $2 million in matching grants for up to 3 school years to participating public schools. And to be eligible, it would be grades 2 through 5. the school have to, submit an application and commit to have matching funds to equal what the state provides, and give an intent for the grants program. And then the state BOE would establish pilot program requirements and criteria for selecting the eligible public schools. And they would have reporting requirements. They'd promote the rules and regulations. And then this just gives dates. By October 24, the Department of Ed shall develop an application process, and then they shall monitor and assess the program. And then beginning no later than June 1st, 2025, and June of each year, the Department of Education will provide the State Board of Education a report of the annual assessment. So that's the bill.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Representative Evans? Okay, we have a couple people to speak. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not lighting up. Okay.
Oh, thank you. First, her granddaughter was the illustrator.
She was the illustrator. Thank you, Representative Carter.
Since you're her proxy, I want to say thank you, Representative Evans, on behalf of Representative Bazemore. I think this is a great program, and one of the reasons why I support and signed the legislation is because we did something similar, encouraging young people to write, in my district before I was elected. So I think this is something great. I wish it was more than just a hearing only, so I hope we can get it across the finish line just to continue to encourage our young people to be great writers.
Great. Thank you so much, Rep. Carter.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple people. Jaina Patel, if you could come to the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaina Patel, and I'm currently a 6th grader at Campbell Middle School. I would just like to say a few words about the literacy program. I've always loved writing, however, I know this really isn't the case for everyone. When Stan came and offered the opportunity to write a story and possibly get it published, I noticed people who normally don't enjoy writing getting really excited over Share Your Story. One of these people was my little sister. For the longest time, she didn't enjoy writing and called it her least favorite subject. But when Stan came and introduced Share Your Story, she started getting really excited and talked about how fun the program was. So I believe it's important for schools to have a writing program like Share Your Story because it allows children to use their creativity and imagination, and it allows children to be inspired and inspire others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janie. You're an excellent public speaker, by the way. Thank you so much. And Stan Tucker. I know.
I should have went first, Jana. Gosh, you're making that tough to follow. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Stan Tucker. I am a Georgia native. I am a product of Georgia public education. I graduated from Kennesaw State University with a degree in early childhood education, and I'm a former Georgia elementary teacher, and I am the founder of the Share Your Story program. I just want to talk to you about the importance of giving kids an opportunity to share their stories, because every one of us sitting in here is an author of our own life story, and we have stories to share, and it's important that we encourage our kids to share their stories at an early age. Children have important stories to share, and Share Your Story is proud to have provided a fun, immersive writing experience to over 15,000 children nationwide, and 10,000 of those kids are in Georgia. If you would just give me 60 seconds to read this book by this kid, and it's gonna really solidify why it's important for kids to have the opportunity to share their stories. So the book is called Seedless: The Life of a Jar of Jelly. Life in the produce department was cold. Waiting for what seemed like forever to be bought was boring enough, but with the endless chill of the freezers, it was actually painful. Just waiting and waiting for the lucky day when he would be taken and be a part of a family. In short, the life of a jar of seedless strawberry jelly can be hard. One day, Jelly spotted a family that was preparing for a picnic. They had pasta salad, lettuce, turkey, bread, and peanut butter. All that was missing was the jelly. Looking up, the daughter saw Jelly and put him in the grocery cart. "Mom, I got the jelly," she called. A few minutes later, Jelly was in the family's car and was going home. At last, Jelly was home. After a while, the pasta salad and turkey sandwiches were complete. It was time for the PB&Js. The woman took off Jelly's cap and went to work. They were ready for the picnic. Jelly was put back in the fridge where he belonged. Suddenly, it was like old times, endlessly cold and boring, but this time, friends, it was different. This time, Jelly had a purpose and was ready to be used again. So this book was written by a Georgia fifth grader, and one of the processes in the program is that the kids get a chance to write a book in a hardcover that looks just like this, and they'll illustrate it themselves, and there's a contest at the end where they can submit for a chance to be published. And so I go to this young man's school, and I said, "Man, such a creative story." I said, "I never thought about produce reaching out to us, wanting them to buy us." I said, I'll listen a little harder next time I go in." And I said, "What was your inspiration for this story?" He said, "Stan, I was adopted, and this is from my perspective of waiting on my forever home and finding my purpose." And so when I think about this story, I think about all the kids who are in the foster system who need hope. This story could be that hope for another kid, and he can go out and say, "Hey, I was right where you are, but keep the faith knowing that your forever family is coming and you have a purpose." So our young authors write from a range of stories from adoption, autism, losing a loved one, to receiving cochlear implants, and stories about bullying, and stories about a kindness superhero, which is Jana's story, and even just family trips, anything that they've experienced, which is important. We're committed to inspiring children to tell their story and to make experience fun and exciting. Share Your Story is also committed to providing experience that is flexible and easy for teachers to implement. It's designed to fit right into existing curriculum as standards-based supplemental experience. I remember when I was teaching, this would have been very impactful for my classroom. I wasn't a very confident teacher when it came to teaching my kids to write, and this would have been just such an easy program to implement. So there are videos that model each step of the writing process for the kids, and the teacher models that as well, and then they do it. So it's the I do, we do, you do model. And at the end of the program, each kid gets an opportunity to have a finished book that we can all celebrate their stories and that we are all authors. And so today I hope that you consider giving this opportunity to not only more students like Jana and her sister, but more kids across the state of Georgia. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I don't know about everybody else, but having somebody read a book to me was about the best thing that has happened today. Thank you so much for coming in. I look forward to continuing this conversation as we go forward. Well, that is all we have for today. So this committee is going to stand adjourned, and we're going to, sure.
I can't.
Wait a minute.
Or Chairwoman.
Sorry.
If I could, Ms. Chairwoman, I met Ms. Bazemore's granddaughter and in the chamber today. Is she in the audience? Do you know?
No, I don't.
She is not. Okay, wonderful little girl with great perspective.
So Ms. Bazemore actually has the book that her grandmother
Right,
illustrated.
exactly.
Jana her story was illustrated by Ms. Bazemore.
Yes, exactly. And I was wanting her to come up and show that. So very, very proud of that book, folks, and very proud of that illustration. And I was just going to point that out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to stand adjourned, and the full committee will meet in just a little bit.
5 minutes.
Thank you. 5 minutes. Thank you.
That's hilarious.
Okay, if I can, let's call this Education Full Committee meeting to order here. Representative Townsend, do you mind opening us up this meeting with prayer?
Let us pray. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this committee today. Let's do what's the best interest of the kids and teachers in this great state. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Let me also state those committee members that were here for the subcommittee on curriculum that I have never seen a student that did a very good job of writing that didn't read very well too. So thank you for your thoughts and being here and paying attention to, in this electronic era, we like to forget the importance of writing, but writing helps students and people read too. So keep that in mind as we move forward with that bill. We are going to add a bill to the agenda that just got passed out due to this. That's 1131 on the agenda. So we will have two bills in full committee to discuss. We'll have the HB 1104 and HB 1131. I see one of the representatives here. Yep, they're both here. So we can get them to carry the bill. We'll start with the first one on the agenda that we have as we began this. And Representative Crawford, if you would come up to the podium, I'll cut the microphone on. I know rules had sent it back to you, and you have a substitute for us. If you would read your LC number for us, and then I'm going to let you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The LC number is 491851S.
Okay. Sounds good. You've got the floor.
All right. Thank you. And again, thank you for allowing me to present to you today. This is a bill that was heard before you. We made some changes. And again, this bill seeks to address mental health risk for student athletes. One of the concerns, and we wanted to make sure that we made some amendments. One of the concerns was whether or not this legislation would require more screening. And that was never the intent of this particular bill. The intent of this bill is to inform and educate our student athletes, parents, and coaches, and also require athletic associations to post information about mental health risks after they consult with the Department of Behavioral Health. Last time that this was presented, you heard from the executive director of Georgia High School Association, who is here, Dr. Hines, who is in full support of this bill. And so again, the only thing that was changed in this bill is took some language out that may have been confusing as it pertains to screening. Again, this bill was never meant to screen. It was meant to inform and educate. And so the substitute before you reflects what the intent was always, okay? And so if there are any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Let me take liberty as chairman to begin it here, the questioning. Let's, if you would, and if it's not asking too much, go back through and look at the changes that you have made so the committee members can see them line by line.
Okay.
Now, I don't want you to read the whole underlying area, but the area that you made changes.
Okay. In the initial bill, there was in section 1 of the bill that was heard in committee previously, it discussed pre-participation evaluation forms. And there was a section in there that discussed that in time education. With the bill that you have in front of you, if you look at section 1, there are definitions: athletic association, healthcare provider, and student athletes. If you go in section 1 to B, and this is again the crux of the bill, that each athletic association, in consultation with the Department of Behavioral Health, can develop and post on its website guidelines and other relevant materials about the need for mental health awareness. Section C on the next page, it requires our schools to pass out information that will be posted on mental health awareness. And Section D, it will require our coaches to review guidelines and pre-approve videos. We discussed last time the pre-approved videos from the National Federation of High School Association, pre-approved videos on mental health awareness. Coaches currently do this for concussion protocols and cardiac arrest awareness, and so we will be asking our coaches to do the same for mental health. And that, again, that's really the crux of this bill. So those three sections, again, it is one, requiring athletic associations to post. It is requiring our coaches to review guidelines, literature, and videos so that our student athletes could be better protected and understand mental health risk a little better.
Okay. And that's all the changes at this time?
Yes.
How about, as you were making these changes, or since you've made these changes, have you had any conversation with Georgia High School Association?
Yeah, yes, I have. Yes, sir.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, and I want to thank Dr. Hines so much, because I have been calling his phone probably every day, it seems like, for about half a year now. The intent was never to change the pre-participation evaluation forms that are currently used. Dr. Hines said that he likes those forms the way that they are. And the intent of this original bill was never to require more screening, which could potentially prohibit student athletes from participating in sports. The point of the bill, again, was just to inform and raise awareness. And so after speaking with Dr. Hines, I took out some of this language, and I want to thank Mr. Walker as well. Thank you so much. But taking out some language that may have been confusing, because I don't want anybody to think that, again, we are trying to do any more screening for our student athletes. It's just to better protect them so that they'll be better aware.
Okay, good. Representatives, I know we're late in the hour today, but any questions? Number 8, Representative Wilkinson. Oh, no, he's one. Who's 8? Going this way. Oh, Representative Glaze, I'm sorry.
Is that the appropriate time?
Okay. Seeing it, I think it is the appropriate time.
Okay.
We have a motion.
Motion to move forward with the bill.
Do pass. Motion do pass. We have a second. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Bill carries. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for crafting that. We'll give a moment for representative to head down to the podium, and we have added a bill, as I stated, to you here, 1131. I'm gonna have you read the LC number again, Representative, and if you do not have a copy of this one, let us know. But would you read the LC, and then you've got the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's 1131 LC 491840S. Basically,
Yep. That works for me. Looks like everybody's got a copy. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for evidence-based suicide awareness and training program for students and teachers, also youth violence prevention as well. We know what's happened the past few years, whether it's been through the suicides at school or through the mass shootings. We're trying to find a research-based, evidence-based approach to solve this, to help solve this problem. One of the things this really comes out of is the Sandy Hook's promise. A few things, few stats that some of you may have heard in the last hour. According to CDC in 2021, 29% of high school students reported poor mental health. 10% of high school students attempted suicide. That's 1 out of 10 kids in the class. That's almost 3 kids per class. If you have 30 kids in a classroom, that's not good. Mass violence, 76% of perpetrators of mass violence exhibited warning signs. So this is one of the reasons for the training. I'm going to read you the highlights of the bill as we go through it. If you have questions, please let me know. But basically, it starts off, one of the concessions we made, we talked to DOE also to let you know they were very helpful with this process, such as First District RESA as well down on the coast. And one of the things we learned, that DOE has already started implementing a program to train counselors and teachers in this area themselves. So we took out the part where it required a certain type training, and we're using their research-based training instead. Now, if they want to go down to these vendors down the road, whether it's either, and you'll hear me throughout the discussion talk about for-profit and nonprofit vendors. The nonprofit vendors I talk about will do these services at no charge. The for-profit vendors will, of course, but a lot of these decisions will be made by the local school system, so they need to decide if they want to use their safety grant money or other monies for a for-profit vendor or a nonprofit vendor. But getting back to the teacher training, once the teachers are trained, we'll also train the students. It's requiring 1 year of training for students. They can be either in person, it could be remote, it could be online training. It has to be research-based, evidence-based, again, by approved vendor, by the DOE. Again, some will be at cost, some will be at no cost. With the student training, follows the data that it's got to be constantly on the website as in materials for the parents and students to find out more about mental health awareness, more about suicide prevention. This will be done on a website, again, through DOE's help and these vendors that we talked about earlier. The next stage for that would be the statewide awareness, where there's going to be a phone number, phone line and text line that's given to everybody and publicized to allow teachers or students who see these triggers in students, who see change in students for whatever reason, where it doesn't look, they look out of the norm. They look like they may be going through a mental health crisis. They can report this anonymously. There'll be a licensed practitioner 24/7 for help. They'll contact a not student team, but a team at the individual school to let them know, that the point contact person, to let them know exactly, hey, so this was reported by a student or a teacher or a parent. This person may be having troubles. List a description of troubles they're having. Then that team at the school level would go into action. So the system would be notified immediately, and the team at the school would be notified immediately to be able to meet with that student or whatever the protocol is at the time. But there'll be training for that as well. Again, all this is done through research-based training, and again, it'll be either nonprofit vendors. The training will be provided at no cost, or profit vendors where you can use your school safety money. Also, one part of the what's nice, it gives the school system a choice of which route they want to go. So this still allows for local school-based decisions. And again, I appreciate DOE's help in guiding us through that. And the last piece is you would have a current student organization at school, extracurricular club or activity group, who would help throughout the year promote, support this type of program. And that would be at school level, of course, and the school discretion of which club or extracurricular organization wanted to do this. This is for 6 through 12 training. This is for public schools. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. I really cut through a lot. There's a lot more in there than what I've mentioned. But again, I think the key thing here is the training for the teachers, the required training for the students. That's evidence-based. The awareness to the parents and the community, and the hotline itself. It's going to be one of a kind. There's a hotline now, but it's not 24/7. It's not guaranteed you're going to reach a licensed practitioner as well either. And so that's part of this bill. And we've got the funding for it through the partners. Ohio's doing this right now. Louisiana's just started doing this as well. And Georgia hopefully is next. We tweaked it. It was brought to me by that Sandy Hooks group. When I first looked at it, we made a few changes. Then as we started asking for help with outside groups, they did. And I've talked to a few people in the hallways, other educational organizations, and they appear to like the bill as well. So we look for a favorable outcome. We're glad to entertain any questions at this time. And again, thank you for your support.
You do have a few questions. Let me try to go in order here. Representative Howard, number 6, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Townsend, for the bill. I like the bill. Just for clarification, I think you cleared my question up in your last statement. In the case of the for-profit vendors, that cost will go to the school, come from the school, or will it be
It depends
of the
on
student?
the student training itself would go to the school. If they decided to use a for-profit vendor, they could use their school safety grant money if they wanted to. We've doled out, what is it? The FY '24 budget has $104 million for school safety. It's basically $45,000 on grant per school. So it gives the school or school system a choice of which way they want to go, either not the nonprofit vendor route or use grant money for the for-profit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I believe in the correct order, and I've got your button push. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative, for bringing the bill. So, and then the toll-free telephone hotline on line 147. So
Yes.
who is that provided by? Is that,
Again, it'll be up to DOE who they
so DOE
work
will have
with.
one contract
We'll have one contract.
with the provider for
Correct.
that?
A school system, this will be in place where if a school system wants to do their own thing, they can directly work with a nonprofit vendor and have their own hotline for their county kids or city school system kids. That would be the local decision there.
But
We would have a
in
statewide
addition, the
number.
DOE will have a statewide provider
Correct.
for the hotline.
And they could choose 2 routes again, the for-profit or nonprofit route.
Okay, thank you.
And number 13, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this may have been asked and answered already, but I'm going to run through it real quick. The cost of the curriculum that the school has to adopt, is that covered by the local school system, or how is that?
Well, again, they'll have to choose an evidence-based
Through DOE.
provider through DOE that DOE will approve. And again, you'll have 2 types. You'll have the for-profit vendors and nonprofit vendors. They could use, if they use a for-profit vendor, they'll use the school safety grant money, which will be allocated in the budget, or they can go the nonprofit route, and it'd be at no cost.
A lot of times we talk about time and schedule. Is there an hour available, I guess, within health to cover this?
There is. This is where the school decides how they want to implement it. They could do it at the beginning of school year, first 2 weeks. A lot of times you get your things out of the way early on, train the kids early on, 1 hour. If you have one of those schools, some are more technology advanced than others, it could be one of those where you do it remotely. It could be on a day early in the year if you have your teacher conferences set up. Some school systems set up teacher conferences early in the year and have remote learning set up at home so the kids can still work at home through remote learning, but yet you have your teachers that's meeting with the parents or whatever else. Something like that could be assigned then too. It'd be a local decision. We want to make sure the local boards of education have as much control as they can with this.
Any consideration of the 988 line, using that?
Right now, from what I understand, it's not 7 days a week, 24/7, 300 and how many days a year, and it's not, no guarantee on a licensed practitioner being there 24/7.
Okay. Thank you.
I need to put Vice Chair back into asking one question. Like
I agree with that, Mr. Chair.
He was working us hard there. Good questions, though. All right. Let me ask one, and then if I don't see any more questions, we'll ask the will of the board or of the committee here. Representative Dew, did you work with, since you're a school man, did you work with any school systems and communicate with them as you wrote this bill?
Directly, no. I played phone tag with a local superintendent. Hall County Schools implemented something similar to this already. They were the first ones, I believe, in the state to do this. They ran with it. This will not interfere with any school systems currently doing this. Dr. County as well has ran with this, the Sandy Hook's Promise, and Atlanta City Schools. So this will coincide with what they're doing and support what they're doing and actually provide them with additional support.
Good. Thank you. Representative Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess lines 39 through 42 talks about youth-based, violence prevention training.
Yes, sir.
Is there going to be any coordination with the other school? You mentioned school safety, other school safety issues we've taken, because if the teachers are getting trained on gang identification, safety, et cetera, does that need to be looped into this as well?
This is kind of a standalone. I'm sure the school systems or DOE, if they need to combine it, they can. Again, the DOE is providing the teacher training right now that's research based, so we don't want to interfere with that. Everything else is kind of, if you want to combine it, you can. We're leaving that open, but again, that's going to be a school-based decision. As long as they do it, it doesn't matter how they do it. We want them to do it early enough, but as long as they do it, then that's all we're asking. I think it's important, and just coming from a background, whether it was a teacher, coach, principal, superintendent, local control. At the end of the day, as much local control as we can. I know there's laws we got to put in place, but it's good for them if we leave enough room for them to make decisions within the law.
Number 8, Representative Glaze.
I just want to speak in support of the bill again, and to say that I would have loved to have this bill in place 3 weeks ago at one of our high schools where we lost a student, and the signs, they didn't see the signs of him being depressed and having taken his life. So I know how important a bill like this will be, and it will help all of our communities and schools to support students as they move through getting help for mental health issues. So thank you again for bringing this bill. And Chairman, at the proper time, I'd love to make a motion for a due pass.
It is the proper time. We have a motion for a due pass. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we also have a second. All in favor of due pass, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Oh. I believe your bill's moving on there for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee.
Thank you, and visitors, thank you for your time. Committee members, thank you for your time, and we'll see you in the morning.